If we're in the past too much, and you could tell when we're shoulda, woulda, couldas, it's usually looking back with regret. If we're in the future too much, it's a lot of what ifs, which creates anxiety.
Welcome back to another episode of Voices of the Goddess, where brilliant women come to take a break from their successful and sometimes overwhelming lives to level up, live free, and create abundance.
If your hectic life has you feeling a bit lost, if you're building your career, brand, or business, or if you simply want to get the most out of life, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Julietta Wenzel, founder of Body and Soul PT and Soul Candy.
And I'm your co-host, Graciela Laurent, professional portrait photographer specializing in boudoir and personal branding.
Whether you're relaxing with a cup of coffee or running around town, we've got you.
Whatever you're doing, thanks for bringing us along and sharing a laugh.
Here comes the magic. Hello, hello.
We are live.
We are live all day today. This is so much fun.
Another exciting interview. I love this. I love this so much.
I think like one of the coolest things is looking back at all of the super cool women and some men people that I got to meet that I didn't know before, people that I did know that you get to know them at a different level when you interview them on a show like this. It's lots of fun. So, but you just got back from Phoenix.
I did. I did. You know, hats off to all of you that live in desert-like environments. I think you're a much stronger person than I am. I'm born and raised South Florida, so everyone's like, "Oh, it's so hot in Florida." I'm like, not even close. Phoenix was 113 degrees.
I think I would die.
You know, and it's interesting. That wasn't like the highest high. Like, I guess it gets up to like in the 120s, 130s too.
Which that's like an oven.
Well, it's funny because I kept saying to people, this is what it must feel like to be a rotisserie chicken. Like, I would go outside and my skin would feel crunchy. And like, I can see the beauty in it. I can. And I'd really like to visit Sedona, you know, something with a higher elevation. But it was hard for me to really see like the fun part of Phoenix because apparently like this is what I learned is that everybody is inside during the day because it's so hot, of course, and nobody comes out until nighttime. But by nighttime, I was tired. I was at a photography conference for a whole week. And so by 6 o'clock, I was done. I was like in my hotel room, drinking my coconut water. Like it was, but I guess that's when the city really comes alive. So it's really interesting to see all the different cultural differences. You know, someone mentioned that she said, you know, have you heard of seasonal affect disorder, right? Like, so like when people in colder climates, like they can't go outside, they don't see the sun for a long time, right? You get sad, etc. She's like, same thing happens to us. Never occurred to me. She goes, it's too hot and too sunny. So what happens is people lock themselves in their house and then they're isolating and they don't get to get out and they don't go and hang out with each other. So they suffer the same thing, but just because of the heat. And I was like, man, this is incredible.
I hear you had a special guest in your room.
Oh gosh. Oh, Julietta, only to me. You know, I upgraded my room to one that had a full kitchen because I was like, I'm going to be so smart. I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to have all my food there, which did work out. But the first night I kick my shoes off, you know, I'm walking around and I walk over this like little brown something on the floor. And my brain was like, oh, that's like a piece of cardboard, you know, like from opening a box of something. And then I was like, I haven't opened up any boxes. Like at this point, I've already walked over it. So I was like, what was that? I turn around. It was a scorpion, like a real desert scorpion in my room. And it was just still. So I was like, well, is it dead? I don't, you know, just in case. So I went and I got a glass and I like went, yeah, and I put the glass right over it and I trapped it. And I was like, okay, this is fine. Like, even if it's alive, it's not strong enough to move a glass, right? I'm like, okay. And then later on I saw it and it was like curled up in a corner of the glass. So I was like, oh, maybe it's like drying out. It's dead. I don't know. Anyway, fast forward the next night. I'm walking around. And of course, because I didn't move the glass, I absentmindedly kicked it. So I kicked the glass and now the scorpion is like loose somewhere. And it was not like anywhere close. I was like, oh shit, it's alive. It's very much alive. So I had to hunt it down again. It was like very National Geographic. I got the cup on it again. And then this time I literally called the front desk and I'm like, do you guys have like a scorpion removal service? Like, is that a thing here in Phoenix? And the front desk was like, we'll be right there. When I tell you that there was a guy at my door within 60 seconds, like fire rescue could not have showed up faster than this guy. He was there with like his tools and a spray and whatever. He took it, got rid of it, took it all out. But I was like, man, this landscape is like intense. Like you got to be on your game.
Yeah, I don't know about scorpions.
I mean, I'm just
not like a palmetto bug, and people complain about a palmetto, whatever, no big deal. Like,
I mean, palmetto bugs do fly, so they have that going against them. But
kill you.
Like, I was happy that the scorpion was not like some sort of strange, jumping, flying scorpion, because then I really would have just burned the whole building down.
Are there flying, jumping scorpions?
I don't know, but you know what? That landscape is so serious. I'm like, can you imagine being like the first peoples living here, like, colonizing America? Who the hell goes through that area and says, this is a good idea? Like, there's no water. All the vegetation is like pokey and angry. Although everyone tells me, give it a chance, go to Sedona. They're like, all the plants have flowers on them. It's actually really beautiful. So anyway, I hope to make that a destination for one of our retreats coming up.
Yes.
But Phoenix, I've tried you twice. Love you. But I think you and your scorpions, that's all you do.
All right. Let's bring on our guest, because that's enough scorpion talk for me.
I don't know. You're freaking me out a little bit.
Welcome to the show, Susan.
Welcome. I'll have you know that you can handle a hurricane much easier than you can handle a scorpion. I'll tell you that much.
That would, though, it's like you have that feeling the whole night of looking under the sheets, or you feel something, at your feet.
Oh, yeah. I shook out my shoes, my clothes, my towels, my pillows all day, every day for 7 days. I surely did.
That's a great story.
Oh, welcome to the show, Susan. Would you please take a moment and tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what keeps you passionate?
Sure. First, I want to say thank you, because it's a blessing for me to be on here. So I really appreciate it. And just, I could just feel your energy. And so thank you with appreciation. I'm an International Coach Federation certified coach, which means that I've been through coaching school, certification, etc. And I've basically been coaching my whole life, but it wasn't a profession back then, only in acting or sports, etc. And it's similar in a way that you work with people, you help them, whether it's reaching a goal, figuring out life purpose, whatever, you can make a plan, and it's guiding and supporting them to basically meet that, and providing accountability, whatever the person needs. But I want to clarify, it's not therapy, it's not consulting. It's meeting the person where they are. And for me, the foundation of my coaching, because I work with individuals, businesses, government, the intelligence community, etc. People are people. But I just, what I found with everybody, and what I found in my own life, my whole foundation is mindset, resilience, and any type of transition, because it's those three things that we all share. What are we saying to ourselves? How resilient are we? How do we view things? And if we build that resilience muscle, then what ends up being is we have a thriving, flourishing life, along with a positive self-talk, or our inner chatter, or what some people call the itty-bitty committee.
I haven't heard that one in a while.
Because it's usually pretty critical, but it's just.
I'm kind of curious, like, what do you say to folks that aren't sure if they're ready for coaching, right? Like, you're not totally happy, you want to be happy, but you're not sure, is it the right time? How do I take that next step? What does that look like?
Yeah, and it's different for everybody, because what I basically do, and something I've had since childhood, is I've always been a really good listener. And so what I basically do, people come for different reasons. It could be life purpose or what's next because they're not sure. People don't come and go, oh, I need confidence, but as you're listening and building awareness, like for me in every session, it's building self-awareness, knowing what your values are, because our values are what drive us. And when you attach that to a goal, they have meaning for us. And so our success rate rises. When businesses look at that, they look at it from the view of, oh, that's a good return on investment. For people, it's more, what I love is reconnecting people with who they are, what their purpose is here, and getting whatever is in the way out of the way. So it's kind of like peeling back an onion.
I feel like it comes up a lot these days that people are struggling with finding their purpose.
Yeah.
And I think some of it goes back, on the previous show, we were talking about like older generations. I don't know that people were necessarily thinking about finding their purpose and doing that. They were just like, I just got to get a job, provide for my family, and handle things.
Right.
But I think as we're growing humanity, like people
Right.
are more interested in their purpose, but so many are struggling to figure out what that is.
Right. And what I always say to people is, if you're not sure, like, of the what's next, because a lot of people, if we're in the past too much, and you could tell when we're shoulda, woulda, couldas, it's usually looking back with regret. If we're in the future too much, it's a lot of what ifs, which creates anxiety. So one of the things is bringing the person back to where they are, which is in the present, considering really that's all we have. But it's helping them embrace what means something to them, what has, even sometimes I'll ask, when you were a child, what gave you joy? If I'm working with people going through career transition and they're not happy with what they're doing, or they're not happy in a relationship, I'm always saying, look, while you're here and say you're in a career that you're not loving, you still need to pay your bills. You have to be realistic. So bring something that brought you joy, and bring that into your life. I walk my talk. For me, it's bringing in just the things that I love to do. I'm all about relationship. And for me, a lot of it is the serving piece. It's just what brings me passion is helping people reconnect with themselves so that their divine contract is fulfilled.
Beautiful. We talk about authenticity, and sometimes I think it might be difficult to pinpoint that the real issue is I'm not living my authentic life, right? So what could that look like? And one of the things that we've talked about is the things that you say to yourself that you don't even realize you're saying, right? Like, oh, it's Monday morning. Oh, I have to do this. Oh, like if you're dreading things and you're dreading going to places and doing things, and if you're dreading waking up in the morning, like it's time to find that purpose, right? It's time to find that authentic expression of yourself.
Right. Something bigger than ourselves. When you have that, it reconnects you. I recently literally was going through a little bit of a crossroads with which, always with the same foundation of the positive self-talk and resilience, but what's my next step? And I really did a lot of meditation, a lot of reflection. And I think a lot of people have been doing that since the pandemic. People are just reevaluating. And so for me, I'm working with a woman who is a spiritual messenger, Renee Schilling. And we are creating also a podcast that's going to be called Connecting Heaven and Earth.
Beautiful.
Because where she gets messages, I can then help the person act on them and give them the tools that they need in order to manage life. So doing that, I'm working with women and men, but we're focusing this second one on women going through divorce. And because both my colleague Susie and I have been through it, and we're putting in everything that we wish we had, because they're huge transitions. And I know from the pandemic that the divorce rate has really risen. It's really been quite a test in a lot of ways.
We'll call that the freedom rate, I'm on a mission to take the dirty out of divorce.
Yay.
So with everything that you've done in your life, and to get to, for example, this new project that you're going to, what are some of the limiting beliefs that you had to let go of to be able to step into that sort of project? Because that's a really big deal.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's a great question. And everybody has limiting beliefs. I'm in the productive or positive, self-talk all the time. And still, no matter what, we're human. And we have to give ourselves permission to be human. So a lot of it is just bringing who we are into life and into the different things that we're doing.
It sounded like you had one more thing to say. Anyway, we all got in a glitch there for a second. The other thing that Graciela and I are doing is building a library. And I laugh because I took a course this weekend that gave me a reading list of like 60 books.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, we're always looking for more books. And so, Susan, what book do you have to recommend to our audience to put on their list?
It's hard to narrow it down. I have a few that I just keep up here. And one of the things, and this is one of the things that you had mentioned with the limiting beliefs, is what I had to get in the way, just referring back to that, because my screen had frozen for a minute. So I didn't know what was heard or not heard. But with the limiting beliefs, what I had to get away from, my grandmother moved in with my family and I when I was ages 5 to 10. And she had a very hard background. And literally, when she moved in, she said, the black cloud is following us, etc. And I literally, you're 5 years old, you're literal. I'm looking up and I'm looking for the black cloud, but something didn't make sense to me. So there was this piece. And as a child, I'm thinking, well, that sounds stupid, because you don't have the sophistication to realize that was a limiting belief. But people's limiting beliefs, what you think is what happens out there. And even though we don't, like parents, adults, etc., when we're kids, might not mean to criticize us, but there's a lot of criticism and judgment. And so I started just noticing what people were saying. And I always noticed the voice in my head. I just did. I wasn't sure what it was. One of the books that helped a lot with that, bringing in the book, is called The Untethered Soul, which it's a have to. And it's just for many people, one of the things that I just highlighted, it's by Michael Singer. He said, there's nothing more important to true growth than realizing that you're not the voice in your mind. You're the one who hears it. And so when we hear things, what I think of, like when bullying was going on, which it still is, but when it was really out there in the news all the time, to me, the biggest bully is your self-talk. Because what we say to ourselves is either what's going to limit us or push us forward. So when I was going through major transitions in my life, separation, divorce, my girls, who today are both lawyers, I know they're both listening here today, so hi, girls. And they were 7.5 and 3 when I was going through everything. And I just knew that it's like it's way past yourself. You want to make everything great for your kids, for yourself, etc. And it was, how do you get past these beliefs? And I can remember, I never knew that what my grandmother really was teaching me, that my entire life purpose was going to be about helping people with their self-talk. We do it constantly. Most of us are not aware that we even have that chatter going. And so what I did, I put together, I call it Talk Yourself into Success. And it literally is the strategies for positive self-talk, resilience techniques, because you want to get past anything that's going to limit you. And I always think of Eleanor Roosevelt when that quote, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
That's right.
Everything in life, whether it's emotional or physical, goes back to what we're saying to ourselves because it impacts us so much. And what I did was, I guess the really nerdy part of me loves the neuroscience, but it was great proof for me as far as up to the latest research in oral neuroscience. And it shows that, what we think is what happens, that we can rewire our brain at any time. But as we get stressed, a lot of times I'm helping people out of that fight or flight mode. And as we get stressed, more stress hormones are released. Mm-hmm. So if you think, I think of it like an IV. If you have an IV attached, it goes drip, drip. When you've got stress going on, it's going drip, 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 drip. Well, it's helping the person off their hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Because when you're stressed, you're shut down. You're not as creative. You're not as collaborative. You're more negative. You're not as resilient. So it's shifting people out of that mode, which comes from this part of the brain, which you don't have to know names of, to the executive functions, where we have, our judgments and decisions made. Yeah. And that's where a lot of our values come in. So working with people, these things are not taught in school, just like life skills. So that's what I work a lot of with people, because that's what gets out of our way, and that's what gives us clarity.
I think that's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. One of the things that I like to do is I'm consistently reevaluating my affirmations and my prayers and whatever, my little morning routine, right? We talk a lot about cacao. We have cacao rituals, and I love having that ritual because I know that no matter what goes on in the day, I'm going to come back to that ground zero. I'm going to come back to my true self. And I had a epiphany this weekend or this past week when I was in Phoenix, avoiding, death and heat, yes, was that, at home, because I'm married and I have kids and all these people live with me, all of them, it's my family, but it's hard to find like a quiet place. So I notice that I'm quiet. So when I do all my little affirmations, I'm just doing them in my head, right? Because I don't want to bother anybody. But when I was in Phoenix, I was in a hotel room by myself. So I said all of these things out loud. Yeah. And I'm like, man, this is amazing.
It is. It's incredible.
So powerful just to not just think it, but to say it out loud, yes. Like literally creating and manifesting my own voice, yes. And then hearing it, right? Like hearing it for myself and thinking, wow, I am XYZ. I am feeling this way. I do feel an ease and flow, it was just such a next level.
Yes.
It was really
even sometimes I'll tell a person if they haven't done it to like do affirmations, which are just thoughts, but do them looking at yourself in the mirror. When's the last time you said something positive to yourself? For some of us, it's never happened. So doing it that way. I'm doing some renovation like a million people because COVID. And one of the rooms, my daughter gave it the name, I'm making myself a Zen den.
Oh, beautiful.
And so it's like, that's the place that I go and do that. But one book I also wanted to mention, particularly for women, because it's more with women than men. This is a great book called The Empath's Survival Guide by Judith Orloff. It's just a lot of us get drained by emotional vampires. And so we have to constantly recharge. It's almost like thinking of our brain. I had mentioned this earlier, thinking of our brain as a battery. And we're fully charged in the morning. And as the day goes on, we start to lose our charge. make sure you get out into nature, even if it's just a few minutes in the morning and in the afternoon. It's just, we're not machines, and even machines need to be oiled, but we need to plug in.
Yeah.
And we need to reconnect with who we are. And I think a lot of us are. I'm even seeing it in business where they're like a lot of Brene Brown's work, learning how to be vulnerable, not just in your personal life, but in the business world. Kindness, compassion. I always tell leaders, because to me, leadership isn't here. If you're just going to lead with hard skills, like, give me the results, the bottom line. If you don't have the soft skills like empathy, compassion, listening, etc., nobody's going to follow you. And that's what I think we need a lot more of today is finding out who we are. And if you're not sure, I also do some pro bono work, because when I was going through my separation, divorce, I had never gotten, child support, alimony, anything. And it was the girls and I, living on our own, and it was frightening. And I had help. And so in return, I'd go into women's shelters, etc., or help people if they are even job seeking with interviewing techniques and skills. But what I find across the board, no matter who it is it's finding out what you're saying to yourself and building that resilience. Because the one thing that we're guaranteed of is change and transition. And our wiring, for most people on this planet, resists it.
Yeah. And I love it that you talked about being honest and being vulnerable. I remember one time I saw Drew Barrymore. She did like a little TikTok or something, and she showed her bedroom. And when I tell you that her bedroom was an absolute disaster, like if my mother would ever have seen that, she would have disowned me. Like I was never allowed to have a hot mess in the room. And the fact that she showed that to me, it made her so much more real. Like she wasn't out there just putting everything out like, oh, everything is so perfect. I have a friend of mine that laughs, I laugh because she says I'm normalizing crying because I publicly cry quite often, as moved as necessary. I say I have very lubricated eyes. I'll never suffer from dry eyes. But I think there's such beauty in sharing those real life stories, right? It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily pour out your deepest, darkest secrets, but I would much rather work with a coach that I know has been through it rather than a coach who has, everything looks so perfect and read the book. Like that's right. Because this is how we pass. Like this is generational, right? Mothers and grandmothers to their daughters, etc. And so, and again, we say this all the time. You being your best self gives us permission to do the same. And I keep repeating this message throughout our episodes because I think it's so important.
Yeah, it's in our DNA. It's in our DNA going back, as to the first, people on the planet. We're just, women, especially today, have to support other women. When I hear people saying that women, they don't or whatever, or you can't have 3 women in a group, then you're meeting the wrong women. You want to bring in that productive, positive energy. And I don't mean positive like Susie Sunshine, but high vibration, people that are like-minded, people that raise you rather than holding you down. As cliche as it sounds, it's just, we're here once, let's make the most of it, and that's why to me, so much is about just don't withhold your magic. It's like, let it rip,
I think that's your big quote for today, Susan. I love that one. Dear editors, highlight that one. That right there, I want a bumper sticker. Right? Let her rip. I love that. I'd like to do something a little bit different to end the show because this has been such a delight. You've given us already so many nuggets. I mentioned before we got on air that we used to ask this one particular question, and I'd like to ask it of you, just because I know your daughters are listening, and I think it'd be really special for you to share something. So the question is, what is your sweetest and most delicious memory? Give us a little snippet of something that felt really good in your life, so that we have something to refer to when we need a little pick-me-up.
Yeah, and my girls and my grandchildren are, I mean, they're the joys. I had mentioned this. One of the first things that pops in my head is when my father was teaching me. He took the training wheels off the bike, and we're on the streets when I was born in New York and grew up in New Jersey. And so when we were on the street, and the streets of New York were pretty crowded, I thought he was still holding on. And I looked behind me and he's not there. And I had fear rise, but then it was taken over by excitement and like, wow, look what I'm doing. And I always bring that feeling into challenging situations in my life and just in general. It's just really embracing whatever is coming our way. And to me, and I'll do that with clients, I call it a positive structure or a peak experience. When you have something difficult, bring in that moment. Everybody's got it. It doesn't matter how small or big it is. It doesn't have to be an accomplishment. It could be anything that brings you joy. Yeah.
I love that. And I also love, because it brought back the memory of me learning how to ride my bike. It was actually my grandpa that was with me, and I'd been riding with the training wheels, and I was like, these got to come off because they were getting in the way. And,
they were getting in the way.
But I also feel a lot of it, like his confidence in me, his belief in me helped me learn how to do it really fast. So.
Yes. I mean, I turned on when I saw my father, and I'm looking, and he's going, go for, and it was just, it's in here. That's why I never feel like my parents are gone, because it's, you take everything where you go, and if there's something you don't like, release it and hold on to what brings you joy. Yeah.
Beautiful. Susan, you are an absolute treasure. I have loved having you on this show.
Well, thank you both so much. I appreciate it. And if anybody wants more information, I'm Susan at selftalkcoach.com. And my website is www.selftalkcoach.com.
And that's all in the show notes as well. They can locate you there. And hopefully you're also in our Circle of Goddesses. Feel free to reach out to Susan in our Circle of Goddesses as well.
And count me in for Sedona retreat.
All right.
I love Sedona.
All right. Have a magical day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today and keeping us in the top 10% of podcasts in the world.
Ask us how you can promote your business on this podcast as a sponsor, and make sure you check out the show notes for details on how to get in touch with Julieta, Graciela, or today's special guest.
We're sending you lots of love and gratitude. Have a magical day.